And on hand right now to play us some live music,
some tree planting music.
We've got Dan Berggren and Carmen Gilman of the Newton Street Irregulars.
Glad to be half here, Dave. 2 out of 4 ain't bad. We're going to play some tree planting music, as you said, Midnight on the Water and Petronella.
Okay. Dan Berggren and Carmen Gilman. Dan Berggren on guitar and Carmen Gilman on hammer dulcimer. If you're wondering what that thing is she's playing, it's a hammer dulcimer, everybody.
And they'll be back with us in the second half hour with some more music. Right now we have President McPhee with us on this lovely Arbor Day.
It is indeed.
And thanks
that was definitely tree planting music too.
Yeah. Thanks for coming by.
Sure.
Do you know a little bit about the history of Arbor Day?
Well, my field is American history, but I had to remind myself, as a matter of fact, since you were going to ask me questions, there was a man by the name of Julius Sterling Morton, who really is the person that's primarily responsible for starting what we're now celebrating today. And he was an interesting fellow. He really, it's not by sheer chance that he started Arbor Day in Nebraska. Nebraska has often been known as sort of a treeless part of the prairie, and it is, in fact, geographically. And he was a newspaper publisher. He later became Secretary of Agriculture and ran for Congress and a variety of things. But really, as a publisher, he thought it'd be a nice idea, not just for the aesthetics of it, to make it beautiful, but also very practical reasons. Out on that plain, they needed trees. They needed to hold the soil down and to prevent erosion and to provide shade and all that sort of thing. So he started this pattern way back in 1872. You can go back further to Johnny Appleseed, I suppose, in New England, who planted fruit trees. But the Arbor Day was really started by this fellow. And after that, actually, millions of trees were planted in Nebraska. I wasn't aware until I looked into it a little bit that he started something that in a 16-year period, for example, there were about 250 million trees planted as a result of this. All the towns got into it. It was a big thing. Now, so far as I know, every state does something on Arbor Day, except I think Alaska. Maybe the tundra is still too frozen on this day. It's normally the date that is usually celebrated. Well, I should say the date that they celebrated in Nebraska was his birthday, April 22nd. Now it's usually the last Friday in April, which is the day we're celebrating it. It's a fantastic idea, I think, and has had a lot more effect, frankly, than I had realized until I checked into it. Yeah.
Have you ever personally celebrated Arbor Day by planting a tree?
No.
All right.
Now, I should say I've planted plenty of trees in my house over the years. Sometimes almost broken my back, but I'm not sure it had anything to do with Arbor Day, except that I simply like trees and shrubs, and I think it's terrific to make that a national movement. That was back in a day before he would have been called an environmentalist, I suppose, but in fact it certainly fits that interest in the environment. As pioneers, we cut the trees a lot more readily than we planted them, and so there's a certain poetic justice that since we went through the eastern part of the United States cutting trees and clearing the land, that we now begin to put some back. So I think it's terrific.
Thank you, Dr. McPhee.
Okay, you're welcome.
Dr. McPhee is going to be on hand to lay down the first shovelful of dirt.
That's right.
Soil, I guess. Soil is the more correct term. And it is a real beautiful tree. If you could look out there, if you're listening on radio, if you could close your eyes and imagine there's a nice flowering crabapple tree out in the field, and we're going to be planting that. It's huge. It's enormous. It's just, no, not that little one. You see that real big one over there. And we're going to be planting that live on the air. Our first tree, as far as I know, ever planted on the air, in the dirt, in the ground. So, in stereo, of course, in FM stereo, beautiful stereo on this beautiful day.